I caught my partner stealing from me. What happened next will shock you. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. I walked in as Jordan pocketed my grandmother's locket, smiling at nothing. The smile wasn't relief or nostalgia. It was calculation, a private joke I wasn't in on. I froze in the doorway of our apartment, stethoscope still hanging around my neck from the swing shift, the hallway light turning the room into a sepia photograph. "Babe," Jordan said, easy as a salesman, "I found this in the junk drawer. Thought you said it was broken." The clasp was broken, yes, but the locket wasn't junk. It was the one thing my grandmother left me before her stroke took names and stories from her mouth. I heard the door click behind me as I set down my bag. The air smelled like dryer sheets and last night's garlic. I could hear the upstairs neighbor's treadmill punch the ceiling in steady, forgiving thumps. "I'll fix it," Jordan added, as if volunteering for kindness counted as evidence of innocence. I walked to the coffee table where Jordan's phone lay face down, a novelty case of cartoon clouds and a hairline crack at the corner. I didn't reach for it. "I can take it to a jeweler," I said. My voice surprised me. Cool, not accusing. "I'm a nurse. I've learned that outrage wastes oxygen in emergencies." "Sure," Jordan said, shrug light as lint. "You're good with errands." We'd agreed to keep our finances simple. Split rent, shared groceries, separate savings. "I pay attention," Jordan improvises. "You're late," Jordan said, pocketing the locket with a thin cough. "We still meeting Priya tomorrow?" I nodded and watched the hoodie's pocket settle where the locket belonged. That's when I felt it. A thin heat at the back of my neck. Not rage, just a sterile burn. I was trained to clock anomalies. The timeline Jordan mentioned didn't match the group chat, the receipt magnets on the fridge, the slow math of our rent envelope. I told myself not to escalate. Not yet. Losing my cool means losing information. "We'll talk after I shower," I said, filing away the angle of Jordan's shoulder, the way their phone faced down on the coffee table, notifications silenced. I rinsed my hands longer than necessary and practiced a neutral face in the mirror, seeing the small crescent scar on my chin, a reminder that ignoring small risks makes bigger scars. If Jordan had nothing to hide, there would be nothing to find. If I found something, I needed to be the kind of person who didn't look away. The first shock wasn't the missing locket. It was what the bank alert said. Before the locket, there was the halo. Jordan entered my life like a well-lit lobby, tidy, warm, complimentary coffee in the corner. We met at a blood drive where I volunteered between shifts, and Jordan made the room feel lighter, telling an old man he looked like Sinatra and convincing a nervous teenager that bravery was just 5 quiet minutes. We fell into a rhythm built from mismatched habits. Jordan cooked with music loud. I labeled Tupperware and timed pasta. Jordan told stories about scrappy childhood deals, flipping sneakers, reselling tickets, stretching dollars until they squeaked. I admired the tenacity, maybe too much. I grew up measuring, charting, counting pills and minutes. Jordan's improvisation felt like weather, sometimes inconvenient, always interesting. Hairline cracks showed as smudges on a lens. A borrowed 20 never came back. A shirt I loved ended up with a friend by accident. Jordan brushed off these little things with jokes. "You're so tidy, Alex," Jordan would say, tapping my phone. "If I go missing, your spreadsheets will find me." I laughed because it felt flattering and because laughing was easier than asking why our rent envelope ran light 1 month and why Jordan's tips arrived as stories instead of bills. It wasn't a crisis. It was noise, a low hum that hides a rattle if you lean closer, the sort of thing you promise yourself you'll address when you're less tired and when the next paycheck clears. Marcus teased me that I was dating charisma with a phone bill. Priya said Jordan was sunshine with a forecast. I told them I had it handled. People earn trust by being trusted, right? So I let Jordan use my laptop to apply for gigs and handed over the Wi-Fi password without ceremony. 2 weeks before the locket, we argued at the kitchen table about a temporary transfer. Our banking app showed a $260 debit to a vendor I didn't recognize. It was a subscription. "My bad," Jordan said, hand on my shoulder, lips on my temple. "I'll replace it Friday." Friday came and went. Then I forgot to follow up because the unit got slammed and a patient coded on the ambulance bay. The flowers Jordan bought after the fight wilted in the sink, their stems brown against the metal. I tossed them with the coffee grounds, the petals sticking to the filter like damp confetti that couldn't remember what it was celebrating. The halo dimmed, but I still didn't expect the pawn ticket folded under our sugar jar. The pawn ticket made a brown, papery sound when I unfolded it, like a whisper I wasn't supposed to hear. The shop name was Gold Star Resale, date stamped last Tuesday at 2:14 p.m., 20 minutes after I'd texted Jordan a photo from the break room. The locket in my palm, chain knotted, captioned, "Remind me to fix this." I stared at that timestamp and felt my stomach tilt. The ticket listed vintage locket, gold tone, initials ER. My grandmother's. A pawn amount, $120. Jordan had framed the find as rescue. The ticket framed it as sale. I held the paper over the sink like a match I might have to burn and reburn until the truth stopped smoking. I put the ticket back exactly as I'd found it, then opened our bank app with the weird steadiness I get before a code blue. The transaction list was a neat row of tiny earthquakes. A $74.19 debit to Rowan Mart, while Jordan said they were home streaming a show. A $93 ATM withdrawal in a neighborhood Jordan describes as nothing there but auto care and crows. A $4.99 here, $12.35 there, no single cut, just a slow bleed taken in teaspoons. I scrolled further. There was the $260 subscription. There was a $48 charge at a shipping store I'd never heard mentioned, the kind where packages go in and paper trails go vague. At the bottom of the list, a pending charge hovered like a held breath. Gold Star Resale $0. 00 off. Pending means the card was present. Jordan had tapped or swiped. I know those rules because my patients' families ask how fraud works when their wallets go missing in the chaos, and I have to teach them in soft, clear language when their hands are still shaking. "Hey," I called casually. "Did you go anywhere Tuesday after lunch?" Jordan looked over the couch, eyes soft, mouth already smiling. "Nah, napped, then laundry." "Why?" I held my phone screen like it weighed nothing. "No reason. When I went to fold towels, I found the laundry basket suspiciously light for a day that allegedly included a full wash. The dryer lint was clean like a crime scene wiped down. I let my mind list possibilities, then crossed out the ones that sounded like excuses written in crayon. I texted Priya, "If I told you someone sold my locket, is that too dramatic?" She called instantly. "Start writing everything down," she said. "Times, amounts, where you found each thing. Screenshots to a folder that doesn't sync to the shared laptop." We made a plan in the quiet tone people use in triage. Calm, clipped, hopeful, because preparation feels like hope. I opened a fresh note and typed details until my thumbs hurt, then set the phone face down on the table and listened to my heart pace out seconds. The notification chimed that night. Unmistakably Jordan's phone, while Jordan swore they turned off all alerts. Rent day came with its usual choreography. I withdrew my half in cash because our landlord is old school, and Jordan promised to Venmo by noon. Noon arrived as a shrug. At 4, Jordan sent $300, apologizing because tips were trash this week. We were still $250 short. I covered it with my emergency envelope, feeling the paper go thin in my fingers, telling myself to breathe. That night our bank sent 3 overdraft emails, each more cheerful than the last about the fee they'd be taking for our trouble. The subject lines were sunshine, the math was rain. I sat at the table with a calculator, watching the month collapse like a bad Jenga tower. At Priya's insistence, I visited Gold Star Resale on my dinner break. The clerk, a tired man in a baseball cap with perfect politeness, glanced at the ticket. "We still have it," he said. He showed me my grandmother's locket under glass. There was my ER, scratched by time. My breath hitched. "Can I buy it back?" I asked. "You can redeem it with the ticket, plus interest," he said. "Or wait out the hold and hope. But it'll go fast." I took a photo and paid the redemption, nearly shaking at the register as if my name might fall out of me. He slid the locket into a small velvet pouch, like handing over a heartbeat. When I came home holding the pouch, Jordan was on the couch with our neighbor Tasha, laughing over a drink. "Look at you," Jordan said, arms wide. "Fancy nurse with fancy things." Tasha asked, "Everything okay?" Jordan rolled their eyes. "Alex loves drama. Probably bought back something they themselves lost." Heat ran up my neck to my scalp. "You pawned this," I said quietly. "You took it Tuesday." Jordan's smile hardened. Stop making wild accusations in front of people. You're obsessive. Tasha's gaze slid to the door. I placed the pouch on the table and let the silence stretch until even the ice in Tasha's glass clicked. Everyone loses things, Jordan said, voice dipped in honey. You work too much, you forget where you put stuff. Maybe you pawned it before and forgot. Maybe your brother borrowed it. Maybe Priya likes gold. I have the ticket with your signature, I said. And the timestamp. Jordan shrugged. Then you have proof that I saved us from overdraft fees by doing what you wouldn't. You're welcome. I stared at the living room we built together, the thrifted bookshelf, the rug we argued over, the plant I kept reviving. It all felt suddenly staged, like a set that would vanish when someone flicked the lights. Tasha excused herself, and Jordan leaned close, whispering, If you keep embarrassing me, I'll tell everyone what you did. What I did. I repeated, but Jordan had already moved to the sink, banging cups. Later there were texts. You're being paranoid. You're tired. You're making up stories to feel important. When I told Marcus, he said, Come stay here a few days. But I didn't want to explain to my landlord or to the unit why I'd suddenly moved. I chose to wait and watch. Jordan brought home takeout and jokes, then kissed my forehead like a stamp. When I didn't laugh, Jordan sighed big and theatrical, as if I ruined a scene. I double-checked drawers I had already checked, then scolded myself for acting like a raccoon. I slept shallow. Every sound felt like a confession. Priya asked for my router login and walked me through checking connected devices. You've got a new MAC address here, she said. Phone you don't recognize. First appeared 2 weeks ago at 3 a.m. Jordan hates mornings. Could be a friend? I offered. At 3? Priya said. Or a burner. My mouth went dry. Also, she added, your shared laptop has a hidden user. Not admin. Just a sandbox, recently used. She paused. Alex, please tell me you don't store scans of your ID in there. Silence answered. I had scanned my license to renew our parking permit and left it in a folder labeled Permits. My chest tightened like a hooked weight. Change your passwords, freeze your credit, Priya said. Tonight. I did, moving methodically tab by tab like a code. Jordan knocked on the door, asking if I'd seen their hoodie, and I answered normally, tongue wooden. You're distant lately, Jordan said through the wood. You okay? I pictured the locket, the overdraft emails, my own face rehearsing neutrality. I opened my bank's fraud page and read about friendly fraud, the tidy phrase for theft in domestic clothing. Examples read like letters to future me, shared devices, shared passwords, borrowed cards that don't return. My job trains me to document before diagnosing. This was no different, just bloodless and quiet. I recorded serial numbers, photographed everything small enough to vanish, and emailed it to an address Jordan doesn't know exists. It felt like building a life raft with receipts while the boat still looked fine from shore. I needed proof usable outside our apartment, even if something had to break. I started small because small keeps you careful. I set my phone to record the living room whenever I left for a shift, hidden behind the fern that only I watered. I placed a hair strand trap on the desk drawer where I kept my passport, then took a time-stamped photo of the strands crossing the seam like pale, unremarkable lasers. I told Marcus I was fine and asked him to text me at random times so I could prove where I was when transactions posted. He told me to get out. I told him I needed to know, and I needed the kind of knowing that doesn't crumble under the weight of a charm offensive and a brunch apology. Priya sent me a checklist she uses at work for internal audits. Log access points, note device names, copy version histories, export everything to PDF. I followed it like choreography because muscle memory keeps panic from calling the shots. The first tangible clue arrived wrapped in normal. A duplicate Venmo to at Rowan Small Goods, one for $47.50 and another identical down to the memo. Spice rack, smiley face. A minute apart from different devices. My phone buzzed with the confirmation for the second, the one I didn't send. The device list showed iPhone, guest, 7, as the origin, last synced at 3:02 a.m. The router history showed the same MAC address Priya flagged. I stared at the logs until numbers blurred into a hum, then wrote them into my notebook so they'd be real someplace other than a screen. In the kitchen, the sugar jar paper-thin lid felt suddenly heavy. I lifted it. The pawn ticket was gone. I checked the trash, the recycling, under the fridge. Nothing. Either I misplaced it, which my bones insisted I didn't, or someone had learned I was keeping score and decided to erase the board. That night, while Jordan showered, I wiped condensation from the mirror and opened the bottom sink cabinet. There, behind a box of hair dye we never used, sat a small fireproof bag with a cheap combination lock. The lock wasn't locked. Inside, a spare debit card connected to our joint account, a key on a red tag labeled U12, and a folded sheet of paper with serial numbers scribbled in Jordan's tidy print. The serial numbers match my camera, my old tablet, and the headphones I rarely used. The red tag key felt like a swallowed ice cube. Storage unit, I thought, or a package locker we never rented. I snapped photos, restored the bag, and closed the cabinet softly, the way you shut a door on a sleeping animal. From the shower, Jordan sang, off-key, the same chorus on repeat like a person practicing a story. Gold Star Resale gave me a name for the red tag. The storage facility 2 blocks over uses red tags for unit keys. U12 is ground floor, the clerk said as he bagged batteries for another customer. I walked there after shift, heart punching a steady drum under my scrub top. The office smelled like coffee and dust. Hi, I said, trying to sound like someone running an errand. I'm adding an authorized user to a unit. Can you confirm the name on U12? The attendant typed, chewed gum, squinted. U12's Jordan R. And they paused and looked up. I can't disclose more without ID. I slid my license across, smiling with the bland politeness of a beige wall. The attendant nodded, tapped a bit longer, then softened. You're on it, they said. Temporary authorization added last month. My stomach turned. Great, I said. Can I check something inside? You can access any time, they said. We have cameras. The corridor was cool and bright. Doors painted a cheerful blue. U12 opened on a stockroom for one. Stacks of shoe boxes with shipping labels, plastic bins of cables and cases, 3 empty laptop boxes, a framed poster I recognized from our living room wall last winter. On a shelf sat a labeled crate. Alex, to list. Inside were my headphones box, my old tablet sleeve, and a Ziploc bag containing the ring Marcus gave me when I graduated, engraving side down. File rose and receded like a tide I couldn't command. I photographed everything, angling serial numbers into the frame, then backed out slowly and locked up. Outside, a man in a dark hoodie leaned on a pillar pretending to scroll. His eyes lifted, meeting mine with that bland, unhurried curiosity of someone taking inventory of a problem. I kept walking until my calves burned. Priya picked up on the first ring. It's a flipping operation, she said when I described the wall of boxes. Jordan's reselling, maybe not just yours. Check the shipping store charges against dates. I pulled up my bank history while waiting for a crosswalk. The $48 charge aligned with the day Jordan claimed to be sick. Another $19 charge matched a night Jordan worked late and posted a selfie from the back alley of their job. Zooming in, Priya spotted a reflection of a red tag on the lanyard. They're careless, she said. That's your leverage, Alex. Careless people leave trails. You just have to collect them. I exhaled, half laughing without humor. I'm collecting, I said. I just don't know how to detonate. When I turned the corner toward home, Jordan was on our stoop, smiling like I'd won a prize I didn't enter. Jordan opened with tenderness like a trap door. I made dinner reservations, they said, brandishing a confirmation email on the phone. Let's reset. Their eyes glistened with bought sincerity. You've been distant, and I miss my partner. Love bombing, Priya had warned. Feels like walking into warm rain. Nice until you wonder where the clouds came from. I declined the restaurant with a shrug about fatigue. Rain check, I offered, and Jordan nodded. Disappointment performed at a tasteful volume. We ate leftovers watching a cooking show, Jordan's legs draped over mine like we were a photograph of normal. When they got up to fetch dessert, my phone buzzed. Priya texted a screenshot. A fresh listing on a resale app featuring my headphones. Photo taken on our kitchen counter. Price, $110. Caption, lightly used. Gift didn't suit me. The listing timestamp was 6 minutes ago. I stared at the counter, no headphones in sight, and felt that same sterile burn from the day of the locket. Hey, I said, careful and bright. Where did we put my old tablet sleeve? Jordan's eyes flicked left, right, then settled. Probably your brother's, they said. He's always borrowing. Marcus hates tablets, I said, smiling as if reporting weather. Jordan smiled back like a dare. Maybe Priya then, they said. The hum in my ears turned into wind. My phone buzzed again. Notification from the bank. Another $93 cash withdrawal from the auto care and Crow's neighborhood. I took a slow sip of water. I'm going to run to the pharmacy, I said. Need anything? Just you, Jordan said, light as meringue. I kissed their cheek. It felt like tapping glass. Instead of the pharmacy, I walked to the shipping store and asked about a package for J. Rowan, the name Jordan used on the resale app. The clerk, a woman with glitter eyeliner and a practiced neutrality, checked the back shelf. Pick up tomorrow, she said. We've had a run of those lately. Those? I asked, feigning interest in tape dispensers. Resale shipments, she said. People flip like it's a second job. Good for them, I said, my voice steady as a table you don't want anyone to notice is shaking. On the way home, I bought a small voice recorder because my state allows one-party consent. Evidence that talks is hard to argue with when the room gets crowded with opinions. Back at the door, I heard Jordan on the phone whispering, "It's fine. I'll get the rest Friday." Evidence first, confrontation later. That became the rule I could obey. I set the recorder under the couch, checked that the tiny red light was off, and sat on the rug to lace my shoes very slowly. Jordan paced, phone to ear, voice low enough to be private, loud enough to leak. "No, I'm not backing out," they said. "The nurse is distracted. It's basically free inventory." Something inside me tilted and slid, the way floorboards betray weight. I followed my breath in and out like counting heartbeats in a triage bay. Jordan moved to the kitchen, rattled drawers, and said, "Don't text that number again. Use the burner." The call ended. I tied the knot on my shoe tighter than necessary. I spent that afternoon at the bank with a security officer named Kendra who had the gentle, relentless energy of someone who's seen every story twice. I brought printouts, highlighter stripes, and my notebook's codex of dates. Kendra listened without blinking. "We can flag the account and freeze the card," she said. "We can also note suspected friendly fraud and set alerts you can't mute." "Can you see the ATM camera?" I asked. "We can subpoena footage if law enforcement opens a case," she said. "But I can tell you which terminal, down to the minute." She turned her screen toward me, pointing at an entry that matched the $93 withdrawal. "This one is at the Market Street kiosk at 2:11, she said. "Do you have a timeline for where you were then?" I showed her Marcus's text, a photo of me holding a copy of the morning's paper at 2:15 in his kitchen because he insisted I crash after my shift. "Good," Kendra said. "Keep stacking that." She printed a ledger with terminal IDs and slid it across like a shield. Priya met me outside with coffee and the face she uses to deliver truth I won't like. "You need a plan you won't abandon when Jordan cries," she said. "Because they will cry. Or threaten. Or both." I nodded, feeling the shape of my spine. "A recorded call," I said. "Ask about the storage unit. Ask why my serial numbers are on that page." Priya winced. "Better. Ask for specifics you can corroborate. Don't lead. Let them brag." We wrote questions like surgeons plan incisions. Precise, minimal, necessary. I called from the stairwell while Priya listened on speaker, the recorder sitting between us like a small, patient animal. Jordan answered on the second ring, voice syrup thick. "Miss me," they said. "Always." I lied, a new skill I hated instantly. "Hypothetically," I said, "if I wanted cash fast, what would you sell first?" Jordan laughed, low and delighted, like I'd finally learned their favorite language. "Depends," Jordan said, warming to the subject like a salesperson at quota. "Electronics move quickest. People will pay half retail if you have the box and a decent photo." I made a non-committal noise. "Where would you store stuff while you list?" "A beat. Somewhere not obvious," Jordan said. "Like a unit near work. Label it boring. Cables, winter coats. Keep it tidy so if anyone peeks, it looks like organization, not theft." Priya clapped a silent hand over her mouth. I swallowed. "And if someone asks where their thing is?" Jordan's smile came through the line. "Say you borrowed it to fix a problem," they said. "Then create a problem, a late bill, an overdraft. People feel grateful when you promise to cover the hole you dug." I let silence sit until it pulled at Jordan. "You okay?" they asked, almost gentle. "Yeah," I said, just thinking through everything. That night, I invited Jordan to the cafe down the block, the one with sticky tables and good lighting. Priya sat 2 booths behind us pretending to study, phone camera angled. Marcus texted every 10 minutes with a thumbs-up emoji because he doesn't know how to do subtle. Jordan arrived 10 minutes late and slid into the booth grinning. "Truce?" they asked, offering a hand across the table. "Temporary," I said, and smiled like we were on television. We ordered coffee we didn't want, and I asked about their day. Jordan told a story about a co-worker's meltdown and a ruined smoothie, and I almost forgot to keep my face arranged. Then Jordan's tone shifted. "I'm sorry, Alex," they said softly. "I hate that you're stressed. Tell me what you need." My throat tightened. "I need the pawn ticket back," I said. "I need my serial numbers off your inventory list." Jordan blinked, then leaned in. "You went through my things," they murmured, just loud enough for nearby ears. "That's controlling." Priya's chair squeaked. I forced my hands to stillness on the table. "We can fix this," Jordan said, eyes shining with a practiced gloss. "Delete whatever you copied. I'll pay you back double after Friday. There's a buyer for a set of headphones," and they stopped, realizing a word too late they'd named the item I'd already screenshotted on their resale profile. I tilted my head as if curious. "I thought those were a gift," I said. Jordan swallowed. "They were," they said. "The buyer's a friend. A friend who pays over an app and picks up at a shipping store?" I asked. The shine in Jordan's eyes cracked. Their jaw moved once, then set. "You've been recording me," Jordan said flatly. The coffee between us went still, reflecting the fluorescent lights like water waiting for a dropped stone. I didn't flinch. "We're in a public place," I said, keeping my voice even. "I don't have to record to remember what you just admitted." Jordan's eyes darted to the corners, measuring Priya, measuring exits, measuring the distance between our faces and the truth. "You're paranoid," they said, softer now, a coaxing lullaby. "You're sabotaging us." A server dropped a spoon. It pinged like a tiny bell at a funeral. "Here's what happens next," I said. "Tomorrow morning we meet with bank security and, if necessary, Detective Ruiz. You'll bring your phone, your second phone, and any keys that belong to both of us." Jordan laughed without teeth. "Detective," they said, "since when are you law and order?" "Since my identity might be walking around with a stranger," I said. "Since my grandmother's locket was priced like scrap metal." Their mouth trembled, then hardened. "You don't want to do this," Jordan whispered. "You think you want justice, but what you want is me." I could feel Priya's attention like a held breath 2 booths behind. "I wanted us," I said, "but I won't finance your shadow." Jordan tipped their cup, liquid sliding to the rim and back. "If you go to the police," they said, "I'll tell your job you stole narcotics." The word detonated between us, nonsense and threat wrapped together. "You know that's impossible," I said, my pulse suddenly audible. "We count everything. We log everything." Jordan's smile returned like mold. "Sure," they said, "but who would your boss believe first when the rumor lands?" I realized then what they meant days ago when they hissed, "I'll tell everyone what you did." Not a real sin, just a shadow to throw. Jordan watched my face like a seismograph. I steadied my breathing until it matched the cafe's hum and set my phone on the table, screen lit with the calendar invite for the morning. "You can come," I said, "or I can bring what I have without you." Priya stood up then, pretending to toss trash, eyes on me, a small nod like a hand on my back in a crowded room. "We're done here," Jordan said, pushing up so fast the cup sloshed. "You don't get to rewrite me." They leaned close, their cologne suddenly sour. "If you ruin me," they whispered, "I will ruin you." I didn't follow. I counted to 10 and pressed save in my pocket recorder, then texted Marcus the time and place for morning because witnesses changed the weather of a day. Jordan suddenly turned back with a smile too bright to look at directly and said they would absolutely attend. Tomorrow, Jordan would choose honesty or the slow collapse of lies. We met in a glass-walled conference room at the bank, morning light making everything look cleaner than it was. Kendra from security arranged a monitor facing outward and placed a neat stack of forms on the table like peace offerings. Marcus arrived early in his construction boots, jaw doing that grinding thing it does when he's trying not to talk first. Priya slipped in with a laptop and a comm that felt like armor. Jordan came exactly 2 minutes late, crisp as an invoice, face composed into professional innocence. "Thank you for having us," they said. "We're eager to resolve a misunderstanding." Kendra nodded once and began. Terminal logs. Time-stamped withdrawals at 2:11, 3:04, 1:37. Card present. A still frame from a camera outside the kiosk. Blurry, but the hoodie and the red tag lanyard were unmistakable to people who'd shared a couch with them. I can't confirm identity here, Kendra said evenly, but law enforcement can request footage. Next slide. Our account's device list. iPhone, guest, 7, logging in at 3:02 from our IP address, and again at 15:14 from the storage facility's Wi-Fi. Jordan's mouth made a perfect O and then fixed itself into sympathy for me, as if I were embarrassing myself with a technical misunderstanding. We share devices, they said. Alex is forgetful. I placed a velvet pouch on the table and told the story of the locket as simply as I could. Kendra added the pawn ticket copy she'd obtained after I authorized contact. The clerk's ledger showed Jordan's signature, the same long tail, as on our lease. Marcus leaned back, exhaling through his nose like a bull who's decided the fence will be kinder if it stays intact. Priya pulled up the resale listing and scrolled until the kitchen countertop's distinctive chip appeared in the corner. That chip is ours, I said. You posted that from our home. Jordan shook their head, quietly devastated. Identity theft, they said. A friend had my login. Detective Ruiz entered then, silver hair, calm eyes, and the posture of someone who reads rooms like case files. I'm here to advise, he said. He listened without interrupting, then asked Jordan, do you have the second phone today? Jordan blinked. I don't have a second phone, they said. Ruiz looked at me. I slid a photo across of the fireproof bag contents. Ruiz turned the notebook so the serial numbers faced Jordan. These match your partner's property, he said. Why would you log them? Jordan's throat worked, eyes brightening with the performance of a lifetime as they formed their next sentence carefully like glass. Jordan inhaled, and the mask began to slip at last. Because I was cataloging for insurance, Jordan said, voice quivering in an Oscar clip. Our neighborhood's been sketchy. I was trying to protect us. Ruiz let the sentence sit like a test. Then why the storage unit? He asked gently. Why the shipments? Why the ATM at 2 a.m.? Jordan blinked as if each question were a small, puzzling ring. Side hustle, they said finally. I flipped tech. I meant to pay Alex back. The locket. Okay, that was stupid, but we needed rent. Marcus's chair scraped, but he stayed seated, knuckles white. You needed rent, he said. Alex paid. Kendra explained next steps. Account freeze, new numbers, investigation referral. Ruiz explained the difference between a civil dispute and criminal fraud, how evidence dances between categories until a moment tips it. You can file a report, he said to me, and we can request footage and transaction signatures. We can also advise on protective orders if threats continue. Jordan scoffed softly. Threats, they said. Priya opened her laptop camera and played back Jordan at the cafe. If you ruin me, I will ruin you. Clear as a door slam. Ruiz didn't smile. Words have weight in context, he said. There were costs for me too. HR would need to be notified because rumors travel faster than memos. I'd likely be pulled for a random audit, which I welcomed even as it curdled my stomach. I would need a new place to live or to force Jordan to leave through a process that treated heartbreak like a scheduling puzzle. My savings were down by fees and redemption costs and stress meals. The social circle we'd shared began to flicker. 2 friends texted to say they didn't want to take sides, which is sides, chosen softly. I signed the report with a hand that didn't shake until after the pen left paper. In the parking lot, Jordan cornered me between a pillar and Marcus's truck. You think you won? They hissed, mask on. You think anyone will love you after this? Their breath smelled like mint and fury. You loved me, I said, surprising myself. Or you loved the version of me that didn't inventory drawers. Jordan's eyes steadied into something flat and old. I loved how easy you were to use, they said. Priya slid between us, small and immovable. Marcus put a hand on my shoulder, grounding me. Ruiz watched, present without intruding. Jordan lifted their chin with brittle dignity and walked away toward a future that had just narrowed into a corridor lined with cameras and signatures and clocks that don't lie. My report stood, and Jordan's world finally started to tilt. Healing doesn't look like a movie montage. It looks like paperwork and naps you don't enjoy. I moved into Marcus's spare room with a suitcase, the locket around my neck, and a corkboard I filled with to-dos. Freeze credit, change locks, scrub devices, separate utilities, breathe. Priya helped me set up new passkeys and a password manager, explaining dark patterns and how to spot them the way park rangers explain bears. I met with a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma. She talked about nervous systems like weather and taught me to stay present without drowning. We practiced saying I am safe while my heart insisted it could not count that high. At work, my supervisor pulled me for a random med reconciliation. I passed and passed again, the relief like light behind my eyes. Ruiz emailed updates, footage requested, the storage facility subpoenaed, the pawn shop records provided. None of that put money immediately back in my account. It did stitch a new kind of safety into my days. The landlord allowed me to remove Jordan from the lease if the report progressed. The paperwork felt like a ritual under fluorescent lights. Friends divided and reassembled. The ones who stayed brought soup and sat in silence when words wore out. I returned the headphones buyer's money through the app with a note. Item was stolen from me. Evidence attached. They refunded without a fight, as if they'd expected the truth to knock. Jordan texted 3 times. First, an apology that wasn't. I'm sorry you felt hurt. Then a bargain. If you drop the report, I'll pay you back double by Friday. Finally, a threat in a costume. I'd hate for your work to hear about your issues. I documented all 3 and blocked the number. Ruiz reminded me that documentation is a life jacket. I hung the locket on a nail by the mirror at Marcus's place so I'd see it and remember both the theft and the return, a symbol whose meaning I got to decide. I wrote a letter to future me. You are not paranoid. You are precise. Your precision is love for yourself disguised as caution. Love deserves locks and logs, and the power to say no without apology. Then I rewrote our budget on a clean sheet, a map that didn't include someone else's hole as my problem to fill. I breathed in and, finally, the air went into my lungs without asking permission first. Then the unknown number called again, and I pressed record. I didn't get a grand finale. I got follow-up calls, court dates on the horizon, and a life that began to sound like itself again. Ruiz said charges were likely. Jordan's flipping ring had threads that pulled other names into the fabric. Kendra sent confirmation that our accounts were fully secured and the friendly fraud flags would prevent surprises. The storage facility mailed me copies of entry logs that read like a calendar of lies. There were afternoons Jordan swore they were home, stamped with the beep of U12. I pictured the corridor's cheerful blue doors and felt both grief and relief in equal scoops. I moved the last box from the old apartment with Marcus's truck and closed my hand around the key until the ridges marked my palm, then turned it in to the landlord with a thank you that was mostly for myself. If you're listening to this, I want you to hear the soft parts too. I missed the Sunday mornings when Jordan made pancakes thin as paper and we ate them on the floor with our feet touching. I missed the lie that said we shared a future we didn't actually share. Missing isn't the same as wanting back. Boundaries are how love lasts where it's supposed to last. I froze my credit. I set alerts I cannot mute. I made a folder named Receipts and gave a copy of the password to Marcus in a sealed envelope. I told HR everything and invited them to check twice. They did, and shook my hand with the kind of respect that doesn't need noise. I gave the headphones to Priya because I didn't want the object that used to be a weapon. Here is my advice. Document while you still have the energy. Involve someone who will not be charmed. Teach yourself the difference between forgiveness and permission. Understand that threats are the confession of a person who is already out of moves. And buy a small fireproof bag, not for secrets, for proof. I thought survival would feel like triumph. It feels like being able to sleep without setting alarms in my bones. One night, I dreamed my grandmother's locket opened by itself and inside was a mirror instead of a photo. And in the mirror, I looked steady, not brave, just steady enough to hold the truth without dropping it. When I woke up, I finally believed I was going to be okay. I locked the door, exhaled, and finally slept without flinching.